Hey everybody. So this is not the video that I had intended to put up today. So a couple weeks back, I was not feeling well and I had my laptop in my hands and I dropped it and the USB card got smashed. I had done a video and it was gonna be so good. Yeah, right. Anyhow, it was actually pretty good, and I was very upset because I'd lost a bunch of other footage too, but in the long run, no big deal. And so today's video is going to be a little bit about what that video was going to be, and I also have a pumpkin dessert that I love to make in the wintertime, so I wanted to kind of share that with you. I love to make it from Thanksgiving to Easter because it's called a pumpkin cake dessert, and in the video I'm actually doing a triple batch of that dessert so that I could take some of it to work, which I love the kind of desserts and cookies where you can decide whether or not you want to do a single batch, double batch, triple batch, and it all still cooks or bakes well, right? I love those kind of recipes. Now, occasionally you'll have a recipe that if you double it, you've totally screwed it up and it's not going to work and it's going to taste awful. But this is not one of them. It actually worked. I was so happy. It was kind of one of those things where I needed dessert for my family Thanksgiving. I needed dessert for work. There's a lot of people at work, so I just went ahead and tripled it and crossed my fingers and hoped, and it actually worked. So that's nice to know. Alright, so I was going to kind of tell you too a little bit of what I'm working on right now. So actually, right now, I am finishing up my So Gifted quilt from the 2022 Jolly Box. So hopefully I will have that actually completed before 2022 is over tonight. And it'll just be a gift then for next year. So I'm working on that. And then starting, I don't know if it'll be starting next week or the week after. I can't remember for certain right at the moment. I am planning on doing a sew-along. It's going to be a 4-part sew-along, and it's going to end right before a certain holiday in February. So you can probably guess it's Valentine's Day. You can probably guess the theme of the quilt, but it is kind of a mystery. But you know, knowing the theme, you can kind of get prepped for that if you'd like to join me. Otherwise, you know, you're welcome to, like, I will a lot of times watch people's videos through the series and then go back and sew along with them. You know, like, I like to get to the end and know that I like it and then do it. So, you know, that's perfectly fine too. But if you want to join me on that first video, I'll be talking about colors and starting the first block. And so, anyhow, and actually you might be able to see a little teaser in the background. I'm not sure. Back there on my board, maybe a little teaser. I have 2 blocks already done, and or you know, it's one block but 2 of them, and then some of the others actually have to have like 6 or 8 blocks of the same style. Anyhow, all right, so I'm gonna put up a couple pictures from the quilt that my friend and I were working on. They're not good pictures. I had to take them really quickly one night, so they're not good. And I did have just a little bit of footage that I managed to save from making that video. So I'll put some of that up and then I'll narrate what the whole project was really about. In October, I had purchased a mystery box from So Yeah Brothers Quilting, and when I got that box, it actually contained several duplicate yards of fabric, duplicate bundles actually, and that's great for me because I actually share fabric with a friend of mine, and so I had kind of started to think of this idea for a couple of the bundles, or at least one of the bundles, were there were 2 3-yard cut bundles,
And I was thinking, why don't I talk to another friend of mine and we'll set up a collaboration where each of us picks a different pattern to use with these 3 1 yard, or with these 1 yard bundles of 3 cuts. Sorry, it gets really kind of confusing. I don't know how they do that when they do their de-stash nights or new stash nights and say it's 3 1 yard cuts. So we had 2 bundles of 3 1 yard cuts, and each bundle had the same 3 colors in it. And so I kind of set up this project where we would each decide which pattern we wanted to use. It was, I don't know if it's what's called low volume. To me is lighter prints, but this is definitely low definition because they were all so similar in an orangey kind of color. And I just was very curious how it would look if we just used those 3 colors. Um, I think it turned out really interesting. If I had it to do again, I would probably add a different color in. I kept thinking like black would really make all this pop, but it did turn out very interesting. Um, and so, anyhow, she did one pattern, I did another pattern. They were somewhat similar. I do have a couple pictures that I'll add at the end of this here. And so again, I apologize, they weren't really great pictures, but I had to take them real quick. And so, anyhow, when she got hers done, then I was finishing up mine still, and I went ahead and quilted it real quick and got it put together, and actually had taken it into my workplace. We were going to do it as a donation, but I actually had another coworker friend that was very interested in getting a quilt, and so what I asked her to do was just to make a donation to our local food pantry. So she did that, and then actually gave the quilt to her mom for Christmas. And her mom actually has had some health problems and just got out of the hospital. So it just turned out to be a really neat project. I had a really neat video put together for this, but it is what it is. I lost the footage, and so I've kind of put together what I could here. So this picture right here is actually my side of the quilt, and then the other side was my friend's. So I'll try to put that picture in here too, and or at least put some text on the 2 pictures so you know which one was which. But honestly, they're both very similar because the colors were so similar to each other. And I think they're both just really pretty. In fact, I actually quilted it with my friend's as the top and mine as the backings because I really liked what she'd done for her pattern. And again, I apologize that it's kind of hard to see here in this video, but I tried to salvage what I could. And anyhow, it turned out to be kind of an interesting project, and made a nice donation to our local pantry, and was a nice little gift for my friend to give to her mom. So it's all in all, it gave me a good kind of Christmassy feeling. So anyhow, and now let's go on to the pumpkin dessert.
Alright, let's make some pumpkin cake dessert for New Year's. So, for this recipe, I'm actually tripling it here. So, for the single recipe, you want to remove 1 cup from a box of white or yellow cake mix, set it aside, take the remainder of the cake mix and melt half a cup of margarine and beat 1 egg, add them together, and you're going to create the foundation of your pumpkin cake mix. That's what I'm doing right here in the big bowl. So I've set aside my cake mix for the topping in the smaller bowl. Again, I tripled the batch, so I used 2 yellow cake mixes and a white cake mix. But right now I'm just making the bottom. So you would take the majority of the cake mix minus the 1 cup that you've set aside, half a cup of margarine, and an egg, and mix that together to make the base of your pumpkin dessert here. Second step, after getting your foundation in your pie pan here, or cake pan, is actually probably cleaning the bowl. That's coming up here in a minute. And then you actually want to, for your second step, you're going to take a can of Libby's pumpkin pie mix, which I have sitting there on the kitchen island. It's the orange and brown label kind. It's the larger of the Libby's pie. So it's not packed. It's not packed pumpkin. It's the pie mix. So it's got all the spices and all that in it already. So for what I'm doing here, I'm actually going to use both the pie mix can and I'm going to use some pumpkin puree that I had in my freezer. So, but for the recipe, you want to use pumpkin pie mix and 2 beaten eggs. And that's going to form the center layer of your cake. Obviously, because I tripled it, I had to use more eggs and pumpkin puree and all that. And add some spices to it and stuff. So when I get that mixed up and I get that put onto the cake here in a second, or maybe in a minute, then I'm going to start in on the topping, which will be using the 1 cup of the cake mix that I set aside, or actually in my case 3 cups because I tripled it. But in your case, 1 cup of cake mix, and you're going to add a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1 tablespoon of melted butter. You can also add in chopped walnuts, which I usually do. I like chopped walnuts in the topping. And then you just mix all that up. The 1 tablespoon of melted butter helps kind of stick it together, kind of hold it together a little bit. It's still crumbly, but it'll help hold it together a little bit, and it'll just make a nice crumble topping for the dessert. So, talking a lot faster than I'm moving here. So it looks like I'm still mixing up my center portion here, which again is the Libby's pumpkin pie mix and the 2 beaten eggs. And if you like, the pumpkin pie mix comes with the spices already added to it, but if you like, you can, add some more cinnamon, nutmeg, pumpkin pie spice. Because I added pumpkin puree to mine to be able to make the triple batch, I did add some spices to mine. But pumpkin puree is usually very good just on its own, but I like cinnamon, so I add some cinnamon too. Okay, once we have the pie mix added to the cake bottom, then we'll go on to step 3, which is to use the 1 cup of cake mix that we set aside and add a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and a tablespoon of melted butter. You can also add 3/4 cups of chopped nuts to that. I usually do. I like that. And just mix that together, put it across the top, and then you're ready to get it into the oven at 350 degrees for 45 to 50 minutes. Once you take it out of the oven, you can let it cool for a bit. You're going to want to do it for at least a little bit. If you don't do it long enough, the Cool Whip topping that you might want to use will probably melt into the cake, which can actually be pretty good too. But you don't really want it to melt. So you want it to cool off long enough to just be slightly warm, and then it'll be really nice with the Cool Whip. So hope you all enjoy.